reigning champion, but of course it is going to be a very decent victory for Ball Control. That is going to be the second game done for the night, but next up we are going to have Pyman versus Helloleeroy, which is going to be an interesting one because Helloleeroy has spoken very highly of Pyman, says he reminds him a little bit of himself. We'll be back shortly for that one. welcome back everybody to the ESL Premiership, powered by Windows 10 and Asus ROG, or ROG, depending on how you say it. I'm going to get used to saying it. I still want to say everything from last season. I'm joined by Lorinda on the desk, and we've just seen Ball Control take down his teammate Jamboree 3-0, and it was, I said it was going to be a slobber knocker, but let's be honest, it was a bit of a whitewash in the end.
It was just a whitewash, yeah. Ball did really well though in a couple of those games, that last game where he just held on until he got his Reno, for throwing everything in the way, making sure that it just didn't go wrong, making as many taunts as possible. And the game before, where he managed to order his freezing, his Reno, draw into damage, drew that damage, and won the game with the Finance Portal into the Babbling Book Pyroblast. So
yeah, that was the Babbling Book Pyroblast was probably one of the key moments in that series.
Playing to your outs to the absolute maximum in that one.
Definitely. Well, now we move on to Pyman versus Helloleeroy, and I touched on it ever so slightly just before we went to a break. Helloleeroy's had some kind words about this man that he's facing off. Oh, wow, teenager. He's 16 years old.
And that's not Leroy, by the way, just in case, because he's kind of fresh-faced as well. But yeah, he just basically said that Pyman reminds him of himself, which I assume is a compliment.
Maybe.
But
I don't know.
You know, maybe, you know, Leroy being very energetic and also highly competitive.
Tilted easily,
loses in the finals, those sort of things.
No, but Helloleeroy has been one of the well-known faces of the Premiership, and he makes a lot of faces, so we're in for a good one. Let's have a look and see what heroes, what decks these guys are bringing today in their match. Pyman, Priest, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior, and then Helloleeroy is bringing Rogue, Priest, Warlock, and Warrior. Now I'm just looking back at last week. Leroy beat Ting Ting 3-0. He brought Miracle Rogue, Midrange Shaman, and Zoo Warlock. It was another Zoo Warlock that we saw, and Pyman actually beat Jamboree last week. Yeah. The champ took him down. He had Dragon Priest, Water Rogue, and Aggro Shaman. So it looks like there's a slight change for Pyman, but we're expecting this kind of same on-meta decks.
Yep.
Last week of this kind of meta, you don't want to take any risks at this point.
No, not at all. I think we'll see Pyman in particular play very aggressively. He said that's his style last week. He came out firing with Water Rogue and just basically anything that could hit your opponent in the face. Aggro Shaman was one, I think you just said. Leroy, known for researching his opponents.
And I think there was Bloodsail Corsair and Hammer of Twilight in the list for Pyman last week, so very aggressive. Bloodsail Corsair obviously says a lot about what you're going to be facing off against, and we'll see what bans come through a little bit later, but again, probably Warrior. Hashtag spoilers.
Yeah, I think Leroy will be favoured for this one, just because of that research. I think that Pyman, oddly enough, normally I think that the person who is new is the one that's harder to research because there's more stuff going on. But I think that Pyman probably is slightly more limited than Leroy in his choices. Well,
especially if Leroy has said, Pyman's very similar to me, he's my little protege, he's going to know what kind of decks he's bringing and what he likes to play. And Leroy has been well known throughout both seasons 1 and 2 of being a heavy researcher, really looking in, really diving in. He says that Conquest is so much about reading your opponent, and even the picks, the situation of what lineup you're going for, he thinks he can read his opponents and he thinks he knows what they're going to do. So he really does study VODs and stuff like that.
The question is, now Leroy has that reputation, has Pyman factored that in? Because it's fairly easy to predict what Leroy would bring this week. It's going to be an anti-aggro lineup.
Well,
now has Pyman got that extra little bit to go that one step further and go, I know you're the research guy, because everyone keeps telling me that. I'm going to go one step above you.
And research the researcher.
Research the researcher. Who's the researcher now, Leroy?
It's like Inception going on.
Especially if he's like him.
You never know. This could be a clash. It could be a mirror. Well, let's see what bans have come through. How well do they know each other? They've both banned Warrior. The plot thickens.
Wow.
It's all going forward. Maybe they do know each other very well. But okay, yeah, we expected Warrior bans. Looking at those lineups then, any prediction? You kind of hinted, you said you think Leroy's got this one, but now you've seen the classes that they're going to work with and what the bans are. Does that change anything?
I think it just makes it closer. I think Leroy's going to take it 3-2, I'm going to go with.
Ooh, saucy. Yeah, I can't look past Leroy. I think as a previous competitor in the Premiership for the past 2 seasons, he's always been exciting. He's always researched his opponents. I think I'll agree with you there. I realised I called Pyman Pieface earlier. I think he should probably change his name, because Pieface is not only a great game, but it's also a really good handle. It's because I saw his face, and he's Pyman, and his camera was shaking, so I called him Pieface.
Do pies shake?
Yeah, it depends what kind of pie it is, I guess. If it's like a really creamy pie, then it could shake a little bit.
Shaking, jiggling pie. I don't even know.
I don't want to know either. But okay,
so
we are
almost,
we go. Yeah, we're almost ready to get into the next game. Lorinda thinks that Leroy's going to take it down. I think he's going to take it down as well. And we spoke a little bit about kind of matchups and how you queue. Do you roll a die? Is there any matchups that you think are really bad here that you wouldn't want to queue into if you started things off? Let's say Leroy picks Priest. What wouldn't he want to queue against?
What he wouldn't want to queue against is Priest.
Another Priest?
Probably another Priest, actually.
Yeah.
It seems a decent pick. What you would want to queue into is possibly Zoo. I keep on about the Zoo. I'm not sure which one Pieman will bring. Let's see what they've gone with. Wow.
Well, yep, it's going to be the Dragon Priest for Helloleeroy. And just Shaman for Pieman here. As we said last week, it was the aggressive variant of the Shaman. It did have Bloodsail Corsairs, it had Hammer of Twilight. I mean, I know the on-meta thing right now is the Hammer of Twilight. But it still does surprise me when I see it.
Yeah, it's something that I played a lot because I was sort of... It's something that I do, is I say, this card looks rubbish. Everyone says, no, you're wrong, it's not rubbish. Go play 500 games. So I go and play 300 games, tell them they're right. I should have played more, but I've worked it out now, guys. But when you first see it, it doesn't really seem to do a whole lot. It just happens that doing 4 damage in the current meta is a really important number.
Yeah.
On top of obviously the swing and the fact that you can use it to play around AoE, which isn't the immediately obvious thing when you first see the card. So you swing the first time and then you just leave it there. And any time your opponent wants to cast an AoE spell, you just attack for the second swing and you develop your board on the same turn, and suddenly your board's just there again. Yeah,
it really has kind of enhanced the aggro Shaman, because aggro Shaman kind of dropped out for a little bit of the meta, but then it's just rose to the top of the ranks again. Patches being drawn early on for Pieman that's always a bad thing to draw, but look at this curve for Helloleeroy. He can power word shield this. He's also got the Windrest Agent next turn, followed by a Talon Priest. I mean, this is exactly what you want as Dragon Priest, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. Getting those minions with just the big health against the Shaman is so important. Just means they get to do repeated damage. Whilst the Shaman's trying to hit you in the face, you're picking off their minions. Or if they want to trade off to get rid of this 2-5, it costs them so much time and energy. It's like, obviously it's 5 healing if it's 5 that hasn't hit you in the face, but it injures so many things while you're killing it. And Leroy off to an absolutely perfect start.
And one thing I enjoy about Helloleeroy's games is he talks to his camera like everyone who's watching can hear him. I mean, those who lip read can. But
yeah,
he's always been one of these exciting players that really doesn't hide his emotion, and he had to change that when it came to LAN events. Because if you are too expressive, your opponent is going to notice, what the hell's going on? You need to have a poker face, right? But it doesn't matter, I guess, for these online tournaments.
And it's interesting you say that, because obviously he's done really well in both leagues. He's gone 5-2 in both leagues we've had so far, which is absolutely plenty. And then in the LAN events, he's come kind of 4th out of 4.
Kind of 4th. He is basically the Arsenal of the Hearthstone world, to be honest. But maybe he can finally break through. Hashtag Wenger out.
I knew that was coming next. I couldn't beat you to it. Damn it.
Talon Priest now can come down as well. So, yes, he can beef up one of his minions. Can't deal with those annoying 3/4s, though.
No, he can't deal with them. He also has the option to use the Northshire Cleric and heal. But the reason that turns out to not be so good most of the time is it's not really cards that's your problem in this matchup. You find cards accidentally a lot of the time. Your problem is just making sure your board sticks around and evolve in the hand of this aggro Shaman.
I was literally just at the corner of my eye, I was thinking, hold on a second, how early do you use this? Because this board is relatively threatening, but I mean, you make it a 0 mana, a 1 mana, and a 2 mana, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to use it. He's not using it in conjunction with everything, so he's not developing anything this turn, which he wouldn't have been anyway with that particular hand. It's not a card that overloads you. But that's a pretty awkward devolve. He's just given his opponent the same sort of board and an extra card.
Yep, extra card draw. There's an Argus as well for Helloleeroy.
This is brutal. Leroy not only getting the best of that devolve, but also just getting the perfect curve. Just in case things weren't going well enough, there's another Draconid Operative. As Munch explained the jokes to me regarding coming through Secret Agent last week.
I missed out on that.
You didn't miss anything.
I didn't miss out?
I wasn't being stupid or anything.
Okay.
It's fine.
Well,
just never check the VOD.
I did. I watched it today, but I mean, I tried to skip through those parts.
You looked for the gameplay.
Pieman didn't really have much choice, to be honest, aside from the devolve, so I can understand why he used it. If it worked out, then we would have been calling his praises, saying, okay, yeah, devolve, great tech in, he's able to get back on the board, but now he's behind and very little to work with. It looks like he's going to go for the Hammer of Twilight just to try and get a little bit more presence.
But what do you even hit? Like, if you hit face, it feels like it just goes off into the ether, but if you hit a minion, you're already running out of ways to win the game. And this decision is just not easy. He's going to concentrate on getting rid of the card draw, which, if you're going to hit a minion, seems to be the right thing to hit. But he's got to find a way to do 30 damage, and to do that, he's going to have to build a board, and to build a board, he's going to have to get through this overwhelming bunch of annoying priest statty minions.
Not the best choices, to be honest. I suppose Jade Claws is something to work with in terms of a weapon.
Could you take Finley
I mean,
here?
I mean, I guess if you're thinking, look, I've got so much board pressure, do I take Finley in case I get an aggressive hero power to work with?
I guess the one way you lose is by not having a priest hero power here. I guess. Aya's not particularly great. Yeah, he's just going with the Jade Claws for some board control. At least it controls a couple of totems. I don't even know.
I mean, this is the thing, like, Pieman has so much damage in his hand, and Earth Shocks, that's another tech in.
I was going to say that this is the problem. When you play too many tech cards, if you draw them at the wrong times, those could have been some sort of minions he could be playing for, definitely for 6 mana. But probably even the first one for the devolve, if that be even a 3-drop or a 4-drop. And this is the downside of teching in too heavily, is when you just draw it all against things that you're not teched against.
Yeah, he's just going to have to swing in and take the 5 as well here. And actually, that Jade Claws is going to come in handy. You can Jade Claws, then Argus, and just trade in your face to take that 4. You're more than happy to. Trade the 2/2 that was a 1/1 into the totem there, and you're sitting pretty on the board.
This is
10% luck. Right, this is Helloleeroy, the man who's been in the Premiership. He's entertained us for 2 seasons now. He has now gone out and bought, or at least one, it looks like they are the actual Hearthstone bubbles, whiteboard style, that he can then draw on to communicate with the viewers. This man is just, he surprises me every time. I always think he's reached his
pinnacle of stupidity.
The pinnacle of Helloleeroy, but then he just comes back with more.
Yep, definitely an entertainer at heart, and just clearing up there. And basically the reason that analysing each individual play is difficult here is because Leroy will have any plan in his head of how do I possibly lose this game, and he'll be playing around that. He's just decided to just make sure that his opponent never has a minion from now till the end of ever. Pieman is doing his best to just retain damage in hand, but he just hasn't got enough minions because of these tech cards.
Yeah, he's having to use the burst damage to deal with the minions, and is slowly running out of his win conditions as well. Helloleeroy will find a second Hammer of Twilight in the deck of its Pieman. I mean, traditionally, do they run 2? I've only really seen 1 Hammer of Twilight.
You can run 2,
but I
yeah,
guess
you can run 2, definitely. Absolutely fine to run 2 of those. It is just that turn 5 hit you for 4 is relevant. Turn 5 kill your minion. It's just a very relevant card.
I'm trying to think what he subbed out for the Tekkens, for the Devolve, and for the Earthshock. I mean, has he given away something like a Jade Spirit, perhaps? He's just more than happy because he thinks he can just get aggressive and get the start. He's really not got the ball rolling. It was a perfect starting curve from Helloleeroy.
Yeah, maybe course. Feral Spirits? Which would be, I don't know, I can't even think what you drop. You can't really drop Feral Spirits. You can't really drop Flame Tongue Totem. Try to think what else we haven't seen.
Well, he's going to do what he can to deal with this board. Does have, of course, a Lava Burst that will take down the Operative. And he's making it so that the board isn't too threatening from Helloleeroy. But, of course, he's not putting enough threats on the board himself to really contest this board. So Helloleeroy is just constantly putting more pressure on. Yeah,
this is one of those games where if this was a physical card game, Leroy would just flop his hand in front of his opponent, Pieman would concede, and you'd get on to game 2. Because it's not that, it's one of the very few times that Hearthstone becomes a bit tedious, is where we know this is over, Leroy knows it's over, but he can't tell Pieman it's over. There's no way of doing that. And so Pieman will be fighting to the end, trying to win this game. And yeah, Leroy's sort of shrugging like whatever, this game's over.
Especially because we know, well, we don't know, but you'd like to think that Lightning Storm's not going to be in this deck. It's a very aggressive variant.
Yeah, we don't know anything after what we've seen so far.
There have been so many tech-ins. Well, I say so many, there's been 2. But even with that, yeah, okay, you could Lightning Storm and then Jade Lightning, you clear the board, but again, you're not putting anything on the board, and there's a big old dragon to pop down from Helloleeroy if he wants it as well.
Are these the 2 most expressive players we have?
I mean, Helloleeroy is definitely the most expressive player. Pyman, I've still got a lot to see from him.
Right.
I think that he does put his heart on his sleeve. He does show a little bit of emotion. He'll drop his head if something goes wrong, but he doesn't have, well, signs written on to tell the viewers how he's feeling.
Yet.
So, well, we did say that...
Give it 3 or 4 weeks.
Helloleeroy thinks that Pyman is like his protege, very similar to him. Maybe he's going to teach him the ways of how to meme.
I'm not even sure what it means to be Leroy's protege. I'm not sure if that... I'm going to ask him if that's a good or bad thing. But he'll say bad, because that's the main answer.
He'll say good thing if he goes 2-0 up in the Swiss format. He has made both finals. I mean, yes, okay, he finished 4th both times, but it was still fantastic that he was able to make them. But he will go 1-0 up here. An easy game in the end for the Dragon Priest that just had, well, a perfect start. I mean, you can't really complain about Twilight Whelp into Wormrest Agent into Talon Priest.
Yeah, there was a shield thrown in just in case you wanted a 2-5 on turn 1.
Easy peasy.
Very easy.
Very hard to deal with from an aggressive side for an aggressive Shaman. But I guess that's one of the matchups that he's probably thinking, well, okay, I'm not going to win that if he's going to get one of those curves early on. Aggro Shaman, though, can, of course, come back to bite you in the bottom. And we will see the decks that are going to be left. So Shaman, Warlock, and Priest still left. And then Helloleeroy has Rogue and Warlock. And as I said last week, Leroy brought the Miracle Rogue. Do you think he'll just kind of favour that again, Miracle Rogue, or will we see something a little bit different, Water Rogue maybe?
I think we'll see Miracle Rogue again. I think Leroy, he has his toolkit.
He's got a lot of kits.
He's got a lot of kits.
Got under that desk.
And that's what he will stick with. So if he needs Rogue, he'll play that particular Rogue, I feel. Leroy is pretty versatile, but not necessarily as widely ranged as some of the players, maybe like Boar.
Yeah, the thing with Leroy is, yes, okay, he's very expressive, and he really gets into it, and god damn it, he's entertaining. But when it's going against him, he really struggles to keep calm. And I don't think that he would be annoyed at me saying that, because he knows that he can be quite easily tilted. So if you can get a couple of wins up on him, if you can frustrate him, then maybe that's when he's at his weakest.
I'm excited, Dan.
Really?
I'm very excited. Pyman has gone for the slight second guess on the second guess. He's not just brought straight up aggro against Leroy. He knows that Leroy's going to scout him, and he's mixed it up. I like it.
We also see the change coming from Leroy as well. He brought Zoo Lock last week, and he's going to switch over, and we'll be playing Reno Lock. So we are going to get the Reno Lock mirror. We said there might be a few mirrors. Well, here we go. Here's number 1. And early on, Leroy still considering his mulligan. I mean, do you keep Mountain Giant? I mean, back in Handlock days, it's just an insta keep, but Reno Lock's slightly different.
Yeah, I think you keep it. I think if you can get that early pressure on, sometimes they just cannot deal with it, and they have to use so much resources. You end up with 7 cards versus 3 or something ridiculous if you play your Mountain Giant, just because your opponent has to go crazy trying to deal with it if they get a bad hand. And if you can get the Twilight Drake to go with it, that can sometimes just be game before you even get into the real sort of cut and thrust of who can represent combo and all the other stuff, good stuff that goes on here. Really excited to see Pyman bring this, because obviously 2 of the best players in the world are 16 years old, so that's not a problem. But see someone who is younger bringing different stuff in his first event does mean he's not here just to be walked over and bring aggro every week and just sort of face roll the keyboard. He is here to outthink his opponents every single week.
Interesting that Leroy decided not to play his Mistress of Mixtures. Instead, Pyman's going to play his own, and Leroy seems pretty chuffed with that. He seems to think, I want to save this for later.
You know, it kind of gives Leroy 2 free taps in a way, although of course it means that Pyman gets a little bit of board, but Pyman hasn't got much follow-up for this, so not going to get a whole lot done with his Mistress, but it's out of the way. It's not cluttering up his hand if he does tap into Mountain Giants.
He's just going to protect her as well, just trying to get a little bit of a board presence. Dirty Rat, of course, can play a huge part in these mirrors. If you can pull something like a Kazaka, something like a Reno, it can really make a difference, but obviously risk and reward in that situation. Leroy continues to tap. He's not worried about this board just yet.
Yeah, playing that Sunfury Protector might come back to bite him on turn 14 after a Jiraxxus, when you're really looking to play an 8-mana Jiraxxus and taunt something up to defend your 15 health face. If you haven't got a Sun Fury Protector to do that, this attack had better work, but part of this attack heals your opponent for 4, and it's going to require Leroy to have a particularly bad hand, I think, for this curve to succeed, and I'm a little bit questionable about playing that Sun Fury Protector there. If the Pirates can't always get it done, what chance has your Reno curve got of getting it done?
Well, I guess the upside of having that Sun Fury Protector on the board now is he means he can trade in his minions and use Shadow Bolt to take down this 8/8. Obviously, he doesn't have the mana to Siphon Soul it just yet. Doesn't look like he's going to go down that route at the moment, though. Maybe reconsider himself, but Helloleeroy is still asking the question of how much percentage of skill is going on. I mean, I feel like he doesn't even know at this point. Who's he asking, Lorinda?
10% luck, 20% skill. I think we've got a song coming.
Sounds like an Eminem rap, doesn't it?
I think that's where we're going with this.
As long as it's PG, and I don't mind.
Otherwise, it's Leroy, it could be anything.
Otherwise, we need to get some Blur on the go. Not the band.
Wow.
Pyman is just going to actually go down that route in the end. After considering his options, gets rid of the 8/8. Nice and comfortably. What, I mean, for you personally, Lorinda, I mean, what is it that you think in these Reno mirrors? I mean, you say you don't play a lot of Reno Lock, so I can understand, but you must have watched
I've played quite a lot.
Yeah.
I have to admit it. Nobody tell anybody. I've played quite a lot of Reno Lock.
What is it that gives you the advantage in a Reno Lock mirror? Is it, for example, getting that Jiraxxus first? Can that make the real difference? Is it having the Reno first? In my experience, I like to get a Jiraxxus down early, but I don't know how you feel about
That's
it.
one of the things, but you have to be able to clear the way for that, and you've got this Kazakus potion, which is going to do quite a lot of work here. Getting that giant down, you can see the damage that giant's done, right? You know, it cost Pyman 3 cards for 1. So that is something that later on will be an issue. Obviously now it's getting reversed. But this can be Blast Crystalled if Leroy wants to. It does set you back for a few turns, but I don't think he's in a hurry to get anywhere. Just depends how much he rates this Bran.
Yeah, I mean, Bran Kazakus is pretty powerful. You're not going to sniff at that opportunity. They come very rarely this early on, for sure. Pyman obviously didn't see it as a particular threat. He could have coined Siphon Soul, but Siphon Soul 2/4 doesn't feel fantastic.
Leroy can also sit here, and I think he's going to sit here and think about it, like, how badly do I mind being on 14? I could just play my Kazakus now, guarantee those 2 potions, and eat a whole load of damage, but there wasn't space anyway, so he's clearing this up. He thought, well, if you can't kill Bran last turn, you can't kill it this turn. And Pyman gets a very good pick up there with his Twilight Drake. Saying at the start, the person gets Twilight Drake and the Mountain Giant first. Does get off to a decent start in this matchup.
Pyman really not considering Siphon Souling this. I'd be worried, to be honest. I mean, I guess he's saying, well, if you didn't Kazakus then, maybe you're not going to Kazakus now. Maybe you don't have it just yet. But I am certain the Kazakus will come down now, and Leroy will get a lot of value, and he was also very happy about it as well, because Bran surviving 2 turns in a row is very rare.
Yeah, he's also happy about this Siphon Soul pickup, because this is the second biggest minion he'll have to deal with in this game. So now he has legitimate choices. Do I want 2 Kazakus potions? Or do I just want to siphon this? If he goes for the Kazakus potions, he will overdraw, I believe, 4 or 5. He'll overdraw next turn by 1 if he does go for the potions. So the siphon seems good, though.
Yeah, that's definitely a consideration that he needs to take into account.
I mean, the worst thing that can happen basically is you siphon, your opponent gets rid of the brand somehow, then you just drop an Emperor. This hand is very nice for Emperors with the Kazakus, with the Jiraxxus, etc. It's just the hand you want to Emperor pretty much, other than the combo isn't there. Obviously that's the final thing, but the combo isn't always the way you win this matchup by any means.
Yeah, no, are both players running combo, I guess, is something we need to ask. I mean, it looks like well, you can see Pyman is with the Faceless Manipulator. There's nothing yet to suggest that Leroy is, but judging by the Fellfire Potion, it looks very similar to the build that we saw earlier on, which did feature, of course, the Faceless and the Leroy.
And Pyman just not able to generate any particular game here. Just tapping and refreshment vendoring seems to be about all he has at this point that makes any sense.
Do you, in any world, Bran into Dirty Rat with Twisting Nether follow-up next turn? Or is that too much of a risk, do you feel?
I think I'd like to wait till I've got MC Tech in my hand, but it's a thing you can do if you think you're that far behind. At this point, I don't think he thinks he's that far behind. Brand sat on the board for 2 or 3 turns and hasn't really done anything apart from shoot a few cows or whatever Brand does in his spare time.
Looks like he's just going to play Dirty Rat on his own. I mean, your best target's a Kazakus here.
Ouch.
Emperor is not a good target. And he's going to have to use Siphon Salt onto the Emperor.
This makes a bit more sense, I think. And then next turn, Twisting Nether will come out.
I think Leroy's confused because he's been given so much opportunities to remove this Brand. I think he was thinking, well, why didn't he Siphon Salt that Brand earlier?
But it hasn't looked like this Brand needed killing. After the first time it survived, Leroy chose not to Kazakus.
And there we go, confusion for Pieman as well. He's saying, well,
why aren't you Kazakusing?
Why hasn't this come out earlier? But I mean, as you said, overdrawing was a thing that he had to worry about.
And he had no reason to believe the Brand was going to get killed. So they're both playing the same game, and it got to the point where they both assumed the other one couldn't do that thing.
I hate when people do things.
I've never used that word before. I just thought I'd throw it in there for
That's nice.
a change. So Leroy now has all the value you could ever want, and that's a big deal.
And that was the things we were talking about. It's what can win you this game, and you said Kazakus Potion. 2 of them can make a real difference. And board clear plus summoning demons.
And the other one was all the buffs and stuff, so both options going on here.
Obviously can't deal with Dirty Rat at the moment, so we'll just have to pass. And now, Twisting Nether, of course, is you're not getting any value at all. You need to save that for later, especially after seeing the Kazakus Potions come through. So maybe you could Emperor here.
Yeah, just especially you do have 2 pieces of combo in your hand, so this means that Leroy now has to not go below 20 at any point, or 21 at any point, just because he is a long way in front, which sometimes you don't normally play around the whole combo this early on. They shouldn't have it. But if you're this far in front, and Leroy will think he's a long way in front the way this game has panned out, one way he can lose is to an unlikely combo in the face. So he will probably play around the 21 health mark a little bit more religiously than you normally would in this matchup.
So do you trade in Kazakus to the 2-4, play the Abysmal Enforcer?
The Abysmal clears anyway, right?
And then you use your Brand to...
Because it doubles.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you don't even need to do it that way.
So
but I guess you're taking 6 damage to yourself unnecessarily. You could just... No, you can't do it.
Yeah, a lot of the things look good,
way.
but they're kind of not. And you don't want to give a second activation on the Emperor, because that's one of the ways you definitely can throw this game. Yeah, he's just sucking it up. He's not happy about having to do this, but it's absolutely fine. And he must think that Pieman's low on removal as well, having seen that Brand just chilling on the board for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could see it in his face. When the Siphon Soul came down, he was saying, well, okay, you've got nothing else. That was your only way you could remove it. Of course, there have been a couple of cards drawn since then, but he's thinking, well, okay, maybe a Blast Crystal. We've not seen a Blast Crystal from Pieman, I don't believe. We've just seen the one from Leroy, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. Definitely not seen it yet. Pieman, this is kind of why the early Onslaught never works. Because you just don't have enough stuff in your deck that actually does damage. Like you play a 1-drop and a 2-drop on curve. Let's say you draw an Imp Gang boss, sure. But even that's probably going to get dealt with, and the rest of your minions just become not valuable as individuals. Like a 3/5 for 4 is just not really valuable on its own, especially when it heals your opponent. So that early Onslaught did cost Pieman a bit, although it did help him clear that Mountain Giant, so it wasn't completely wasted.
I think his turn, well, Pieman's turn that he just took as well, is a telltale for Leroy at how weak Pieman's hand is at the moment.
Right.
Because that is a very defensive play, but it's not an optimal defensive play, to be honest.
Yeah, this Shambler doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot here as a 3/5. It can become a heck of a lot bigger later. And now Leroy is looking at using one of his potions next turn. I think maybe that was people showing us what they do.
No, yeah, that was him, I think, hovering over it. So it was him saying, look, this is what I've got next turn. What can I do this turn to set me up, put me in a nice position? I can summon some minions, I can give them health.
And really, as I said a minute ago, I think that the most of his play now will revolve around how do I lose? What series of events do I lose? 24 is another key number you can lose to. Full combo plus Soulfire. He won't be particularly terrified about playing around 24, but if he can at no particular loss, then he may do.
Leroy's also in a situation now where he wants to bait out the Nether before he plays his Kazakh's potion, really. And he's kind of saying, well, I'm going to build a relatively big board. I'm going to try and go as wide as I can. You struggled last turn to put anything even slightly dangerous. If you've got a Twisting Nether, you might have to use it right now, and then I'm just going to punish you with my Kazakh's potions.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he's messing around so much on cam is an indication that he's not having to think particularly hard about this one.
It shows how comfortable he is, really.
He's just sorry.
He's very sorry. But the poor Pie Man, when he watches back this VOD, he's going to be thinking, this is Pie Man's first time in Premiership, right? One of the biggest games of his career.
He's 1-0. He's already beaten the champion. All the pressure's on. He's won an SSD.
And you're up against someone who's just writing sorry on a little speech bubble. Heartbreaking stuff. But maybe Pie Man can turn this around. And I'll tell you what, if Pie Man does turn this around and beats Helloleeroy, I want to see what that speech bubble says then.
Not much. It might be blank. I also want to know what happens if they both get to LAN and Pie Man has to play Leroy there having watched this VOD.
I don't think speech bubbles are legal at LAN either. So, you better watch out. Actually, I want an admin ruling. The speech bubble's legal online. There was a slight nod. He was like, yeah, well, I suppose why not? There's no harm.
Okay, so Leroy crossing his fingers. Does this mean he's going to bring 3 things back to life? And he hasn't played his own Doomsayer, right?
No, it means he's going to write more.
He's going to write more. Okay, sure.
I mean, at least we get to find out his thought process. Because I feel like this is what he's doing. He's going to say, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and I'm going to tell you guys on camera right now.
And they are small speech bubbles, so it's probably got all of his thoughts.
Not all of them, I hope. I mean, what are his options here?
Do I consecrate?
No, 15% concentrated power
Oh, yeah,
of will.
so we got that. Yeah, okay, sure.
Finally, okay.
I did tell you that was coming.
Now.
Thanks, Leroy. We knew, mate. We knew, though.
Dirty Rat. Yep, off the top. That's going to be good. Pulls a Reno as well. It's not the biggest thing that you could have pulled, but it's
important though, because Pie Man
yeah.
is. I mean, it doesn't look like Leroy has the combo, but he is below that 20 level, so going to be there for the whole game now. Okay.
Well,
game changer.
There's the combo. It's
That's
not quite
20.
there, but he's blooming close.
Can you find a way to stick 2 damage out there? You just play stuff, get 2 damage on the board, play a Bran, and yeah, Jiraxis is fine. That does 3, and that sets up lethal for next turn. Leroy got a taunt in his hand. Yes, he has.
Has he got that read?
I think, like I said earlier, he has been playing, or he would play around it, but will he keep playing around it? And also, even if he can play around it, he is now facing a Jiraxis.
Yep.
This is like no small thing to be facing down.
This is the thing. He's against Jiraxis, and he's thinking, okay, he's going to be playing 6/6s every turn, so he'll be thinking about that Kazakh's potion.
That doesn't have armor.
If it doesn't have a taunt, then he's looking like he's lost. Your other options, you've got Refreshment Vendor into Faceless Shambler that can get taunt on the board and give you a little bit of health to work with. I'm kind of liking that, actually.
23 is not enough.
It's not enough if he doesn't taunt up as well.
You've got to Shambler a 3/5, which we were saying a minute ago isn't the best thing you want to do. But
correct.
It's definitely the best thing to do this time around.
Well, who's going to be saying sorry now?
Yeah, sorry that.
You need to get your whiteboard marker remover out, Leroy. He knows as well. The combo's coming through, and Pie Man is going to tie up this series 1-1.
Double Leroy, and he GG's him straight in the face as well. Leroy won't have seen it because he was too busy sticking his face in the cat or something, but the cat was there last week in that spot, so
well,
that's not as tenuous as your face made it look.
All right, okay. Well, I think that Helloleeroy may have just got a little bit of a...
Sorry, mate.
Well, a confidence knocker. He was so comfortable. He was laughing. He was having time writing. I don't need to think about my turns. This is going to be easy. And then just the simplest, I say simplest, of thoughts. Is there going to be a combo to worry about? He'd already seen the Emperor. You said quite rightly, how is he going to lose this game? He needs to be careful.
He found a way.
And honestly, I think he just got a little bit overconfident and he was writing down too much. We didn't think about what could have happened.
Sorry. Sorry, mate.
I mean, I don't want to BM the guy.
Yeah, you do.
I love Leroy, but he set himself up for that one. And now Pie Man has a perfect chance to get back into this series. And honestly, I really think Leroy could have got out of that one. Well, okay, let's think about this. If he had played the Shambler,
Right.
yes, okay, he wouldn't have been dead, but then you would have seen another 6/6 come on the board at least, and probably more
But
for
even
another
going
threat
back
as
before
well.
that, there's things he could have done to maybe get the board a little bit more aggressively.
That Doomsayer was actually really big.
Yeah, it worked out nicely.
Because it meant that he couldn't play the Kazakus Potion on 10. And if he could have played the Kazakus Potion on 10, that was his moment of...
Dirty Rat could have hit your axes. That would have been the end of that game.
True, the Dirty Rat was quite big.
Because then Leroy would have just played against the 20 and that would have been it.
But what a way to finish a game. A game that looked like it was done and dusted. Leroy was confident. We were confident in Leroy. We were laughing, we were joking, we were kidding around, and then Pieman. No, he says no. He comes back with the combo.
I like Pieman.
I like him. I'm going to call him Pie Face again because he went face pretty hard there. And now we'll move on to game number 3. And Helloleeroy says in his speech bubble, maybe I should spend more time playing. Yes, you should, Leroy. Put that in the dustbin. Come on. Let's concentrate now, Sonny Jim. As Pieman is going to queue up his Shaman once again. He's going to throw away Devolve. Of course, we've already seen a couple of Tekkens Devolve. We've seen Earthshock as well.
There's the Feral Spirits that we hadn't seen, so that's one more card ticked off the list that is not teched.
I mean, I guess we haven't seen any... No, I'm trying to think. We haven't seen Jade Spirits, right?
No, so it's not mid-range, I don't think. Unless it's some sort of hybrid-y thing.
It's an aggro. If it's from last week, it's aggro.
Yeah, it's got the weapon as well, so...
I mean, I guess
it's faceless, so it's definitely aggro.
He had Bloodsail Corsairs last week.
Yeah, maybe he's got the pirate package. We didn't see a pirate.
Correct. Yeah, maybe. We saw a patches actually.
Yeah,
so we're still struggling. So maybe he's cut the Corsairs just because he's saying I don't need to worry about the weapon removal necessarily. But either way, we're at 1-1. Leroy's going to try his hand again with Warlock, and yeah, I think he's angry with himself. Quite rightly too.
Focus at the screen. Stop writing notes. Stop saying sorry to your opponent. I wish he had seen that. Well played as the lethal came in, but he was too busy just hiding.
I can't wait for Pieman to watch it back. Oh, that's going to be great. Anyway,
Pieman's very still now as well.
He is extremely still. For someone whose laptop screen was shaking a lot last week, he's now focused.
Okay, so doing the Feral Spirit into Flame Tongue into Flame Wreathed series of plays, which works out quite nicely very often.
And I mean, even if Leroy plays the Doomsayer here, which, looking at it, you'd say this is an alright Doomsayer turn. You've only got 2 mana, the opposition's only got 2 mana to work with.
Yeah.
But we can see, of course, that 2 mana will actually be able to deal with the Doomsayer.
And this is one of the matchups where Reno is important still, obviously, but sometimes just isn't enough. Like, you can get to the point where your opponent's board is so wide that you heal for 30 and they hit you for like 26 the next turn anyway. So you have got to get some sort of board control as well as just mindlessly plop Reno onto the table.
Also, I want to point out the corruption choice as well from Leroy. Good decision putting it on the right there, meaning if the Flame Tongue turn does come down to clear,
nice,
he won't get the value out of the...
Yeah, it won't have it in the middle,
Spirit.
so it won't be able to use the other. I think that's really nice. Pieman not using the Flame Tongue.
And I guess his decision might have been differently if that if the middle Feral Spirit was the one that was targeted.
Okay, so Leroy getting his spells, gone for the 5. Not a whole lot of fun there. Maybe he'll take the 5 damage just to help deal with 7/7.
Yeah, something like a 5 damage into deal 4 damage to all minions is always good against Shaman. Really good to take down a board. But you've also got to be thinking about board presence as well, so he might be considering the 5/5 Demon.
And deal 4 to all, which would kill the 7/7.
Well, there we have it. The spell is created. Do you remember when they first announced Kazakus and how awesome it was?
Yeah.
Hold on, did production just bring you a tea?
No, it's coffee.
It's even worse. Where's mine? There's favourable treatment going on here, Lorinda.
Sorry, I've got a mouthful of coffee. Hang on a second.
Okay, great. Well, there is the Kazakus potion. It means he can deal with this. He can deal with this whole board now if he wants, but I guess maybe it's slightly premature to be worrying about it. Instead, he's just going to drop the Emperor and discount all of his cards and just leave that 7/7 up.
It's really good.
He's got... What's good? The play?
The play.
Oh, okay. Damn you, Lorinda.
Okay, so yeah. Interrupting your important train of thought there, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. You carry on. I'm just going to whimper in the corner.
Okay, so Pieman just building the board as Shamans do. Managing to keep quite a lot of burn in his hand as well for later.
and going to be a while before he can force much out of it. But as we said earlier, the damage comes thick and fast. We have these 7/7s down, and the Reno is only going to be useful if Leroy can deal with this board. So at some point he's going to have to use these potions.
I guess he could play... There's two ways of thinking about this. He could say, I could Dirty Rat and then Kazakus Potion, and it might deal with whatever ever comes out. Or he could Kazakus Potion first and then Dirty Rat and hope that there's nothing crazy. But you've got to be worried about the 7/7s. Of course, it's easy for me. I can see that there are just spells, and Dirty Rat would actually be a really good play right now after the potion.
One thing that's for sure is Leroy is actually paying attention to Hearthstone after the little wake-up call he was just given a few moments ago.
Yeah.
A totally different character, and yeah, lesson learned. Leroy, when he was age 16, was probably doing that to cocky, whatever Leroy age is now, year-olds as well.
It could be this. It could be a much-needed loss in the series for Leroy, to be honest.
And he goes for the Dirty Rat, and not too bad. Yeah, but you're right, a much-needed loss for him. Just that wake-up call that is so required. Especially when it comes to the tougher players. I mean, that's no offence to Pyman. Pyman being new, he's definitely putting on a good show. But, you know, when Leroy has to play something like ball control, you need to be wide awake.
Yeah. I was talking so much about the Kazakus Potion being deal 4 damage to all minions.
And it wasn't.
And deal 4... Yeah, it wasn't in the end. It was summon a demon. But, you know. Instead, he gets a little bit more board pressure, but it just plays into the hands of Pyman being able to J-Lightning this down. He did play the Dirty Rat, and obviously it pulled nothing, which was lucky because Aya Blackball came out just afterwards, and that is one of the worst things you can pull from the Dirty Rat.
It is,
unless you've got a Hex.
Obviously, because Leroy is going to be on the back foot for another turn or two, Aya being played from hand will be able to use the Battle Cry, and the tempo, obviously making the 2/2, if she dies, will be the 3/3 after the board clear, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So if she comes from hand, it is more pressure after the board clear, makes the twisting nether just that little bit worse. But with Leroy having Reno in hand, that should all come out in the wash. He doesn't want to nether here, but he might have to.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's not a particularly threatening board in terms of the minions you're looking at, but it's just that 7/5 is putting too much pressure on you.
Felfire just
Potion
hurts.
is a possibility, but yes, it hurts. Of course, you've got Reno in hand.
You have to Reno next turn if you Felfire now, right? Is that enough? I guess he's going to. I like this as it happens because we can see the hand, but he can't, and as he can't, it makes it a good read that he can't die next turn.
Well, Aya Blackboar is a decent response, to be honest.
I thought I was special.
Did you?
But you've got coffee as well now, so.
It's actually a cup of tea.
But yeah, Aya comes down with the deckhand as Dan gets his tea.
And now... Oh, hello. Mind Control Tech.
Mind Control Tech into Reno is probably okay. The most he can take in the real world here is in the region of 14 or 15. So with the Reno, I think he's absolutely fine here. And he should be able to start clearing things up. He seems to think that's over, but he's not writing silly notes.
No, he's not. I mean, the Mind Control Tech taking a really good target, actually, there, Patches. You'd think a 1/1, that's not great, but he was able to take a 2/1 off the board, so worked out well in the end. There's that Earth Shock once again. I'm wondering where that's going to come into play. I guess if Sylvanas was to come down, then you'd be able to stop that from stealing anything, but...
It's always got the ring of a guy who's lost to one too many Ancient of Laws when you see that card. It's like, you know what? I'm just not going to lose that card again.
Yeah, definitely.
It is a card that drifts in and out of Shaman, but Shaman's so powerful at the moment that it's a card that does tend to get relegated, sort of, not even the 31st spot, but more like the 38th spot.
Yeah.
But it does occasionally pop up and surprise you on ladder.
So, Sylvanas, Shadow Flame. You could even Shadow Flame just the MC Tech here actually, and just leave a 4/4 on the board.
And then just drop Sylvanas.
And then just drop Sylvanas, yeah.
Seems decent. Guess Leroy's trying to work out, because if you don't play the Mountain Giant this turn and you do the things we were just talking about, it probably doesn't get played any time. So he'll probably just be doing a little bit of mental gymnastics to work out if he can play the Mountain Giant. But he might be scared. We've seen a few tech cards in this deck from Pyman. Leroy might just be a little bit scared of Bloodlust.
And I think after the last game, he's going to be scared of everything. He'll be thinking
Yeah.
through every option. He knows. I don't want to say he threw the game last game, but he definitely could have played around things a little bit differently. So he'll be.
Yeah, even if it
considering
wasn't that
every option.
last turn, he was messing around for 3 or 4 turns there, where we were saying, well, it's over. He's just got to pay attention, and he didn't pay attention.
Oh, instead he's actually going to Shadow Flame his Sylvanas. I mean, which seems crazy when we're looking at the Earthshock in Pyman's hand. But I guess Leroy does know the Earthshock is a possibility because he saw it previously in the series.
And also, it's just like end of the game, right? I mean, where's Pyman going to do 25 ever now? It defended Leroy's Twisting Nether. And Pyman is engaging in the banter, which is fine. Good to see this. It's a 5-week league, and this game isn't over yet. And he's 1-0. And this may go on for some time.
Yeah. And Leroy now, as you said, I think this game is pretty much done and dusted.
Just to point out, one of these guys is the experienced player. One of them is new to the league. One of them has just lost a game by messing around. And one of them's engaging in making your opponent mess around. I like this from Pyman.
Yeah. I really
getting
like it
Leroy
as well.
on the back foot, messing around a game, maybe getting a bit cocky into game 4. If you get Leroy being cocky, maybe you get Leroy to mess up.
Yeah, try and get into his head a little bit. Of course, he won't know how much Leroy was messing around just yet. Hold up. I don't want to even get mine, but I've got 2 there as well. But okay, we move into game number 4, and a chance now for Leroy to make up for the last game that was... Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it anymore, actually. I think it might, I think it might haunt me tonight. I'll just be thinking, no, not the combo. Don't do it.
That's a lot of damage.
It's a lot of damage.
Thankfully, it's a lot of damage we probably won't see much anymore. I guess the deck is still viable. It's no Reno Jackson.
So, left for Leroy, I believe, is Rogue?
Yes.
Yeah, it is the Rogue. There it is. And he'll be going up against Pyman's Shaman and Priest. What would you, if you were in Pyman's situation, what would you queue up now? I'm going to ask you that question that every caster hates to be asked.
I'd queue up the Shaman.
Okay.
Because that's what I flipped on the heads or tails.
In your head, a mental coin.
Mental coin.
Do you do that a lot? Do you have a few mental coins rattling around in there?
Yeah, there's a lot of things rattling around in there.
Mental.
Just
They are
baggage
mental.
mainly.
They're definitely mental. Okay, yeah, I agree. I think Shaman is a more consistent deck than the Priest. So it'd get another win on the board, make it 2-2, and then go into that game 5 with hopefully a little bit of confidence and hopefully derailing the confidence of Helloleeroy. And was that last game between these two, was that just an easy one for Helloleeroy? Was there any chance that Shaman was going to win that? Was there anything you saw that could have possibly been different?
I think Leroy just had a decent start there, and Pyman didn't. I mean, fairly silly thing to say, but I don't think there was much. One thing that was notable is how much Leroy paid attention there.
Yeah.
And what you'll find on ladder sometimes, you play like if you anybody, if you play 8 hours, 12 hours in a row, sometimes your results get worse.
Yeah.
And they don't get worse because you suddenly start playing terrible. They get worse because you drift off, and sometimes you just need to do what Leroy did and realise what you're doing. And every turn there, he just paid absolute attention, just to make sure he doesn't lose those 1 or 2%. And hopefully for him, he can keep it up again. Hopefully for Pyman can beat him anyway.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying that perhaps losing that game and it becoming 1-1 was maybe the saving grace for Leroy, just to bring him back down to earth.
Especially again, that's something that not only for today, but it'll stand him in good stead going forward. It's like maybe, I've got to go with my persona. People do like me. I like this, how he naturally is. He doesn't just put this on unless he puts it on 24/7. He is actually kind of crazy.
He is. He's very emotional. He's very invested in his games. But it might be a lesson for him saying, okay, there is a line. And you need to know when it becomes too much, because you will look a little bit silly if it goes against you like that. But now we move on into game number 4.
Yeah, for all the we're moving on while they're taking their time on this hand. For all the things we're saying about Leroy, he works incredibly hard at this game. It's easy for us to get cocky about him messing around, but he puts, I mean, his folders of research and stuff he's really proud of. He shows from the last 2 seasons, and the amount of work he puts into this, don't be fooled by the amount of messing around he does. He puts a lot of time into this. He just doesn't like to necessarily admit it.
I mean, I give him credit for entertaining as well. If you look at players that stream, they want to be entertaining. They want to engage their viewers, and he's just doing it in a tournament environment because he doesn't stream normally. So this is a chance for him to be in front of the general public. So I can understand it. But we will move on. It's going to be an awful draw for Pyman. Patches, once again, is going to be in his opening hand. We saw it in game 1 as well. And there is a lot of spells there to make a big old questing adventure at some point.
Yeah.
But no conceal.
And this is always the question with Rogue when you get this hand. Like, you can just make the ridiculous questing adventurer, and it might actually be enough. You've got to work out how they can kill it, and the answer is usually not that easily, especially as you can follow it up by having removal in your hand and just killing the things they put in the way. But you've also got to weigh that against the fact you can get auctioneers, you can... Are you really in a hurry? And so on. But making a giant minion against Shaman very, very early can just be game-breaking.
Definitely can, and we haven't seen any hexes in Pyman's deck so far.
Yeah, it seems unlikely. It looks like he is playing aggro with just a couple of mid-range cards in. It's probably confusing Leroy a little bit, because we've seen most of the cards, but a lot of them have been stuck in his hand and such like. Especially in that first game, I think.
Yeah. So this is the turn if he wants to make a relatively big one, but I think with that draw, coin pillager seems perfectly acceptable.
It puts the pressure on, and obviously the coin comes back when the pillager dies. If the pillager doesn't die, the pillager runs riot all over the board.
But a lightning bolt will swiftly deal with the tomb pillager.
And it is just amazing to me how quickly Leroy has slowed down and started thinking. And these are the little things that you spot. Like I said, the lightning bolt would kill the pillager, so maybe he ends up backstabbing the 0-2. Those sort of things you start thinking about rather than just mechanically backstabbing the 2-3 and hitting it with your face, which you probably do. But this is actually a considered choice now rather than just an autopilot choice.
And I mean, I guess he's come to realise as well, at 2-0, you're sitting quite comfortable. But if he did somehow drop to 1-1, we've just seen ball control. Ball control find his way into that 1-1 bracket. If you're then facing off against ball control to try and get to 2-1, you've got to try and avoid some of these players.
This is going to be fun to watch, because this is going down. 4 damage from the lightning bolt plus the patches. Leroy didn't think there's much chance of this getting killed, but here's one of the combos.
I guess the only good thing is that now he can play this pillager, or at least he thinks he can play this pillager with little response from Pyman.
Yeah, and Leroy still has a hand that can change in a hurry with an Edwin Van Cleef, with an auctioneer, with a second questing. But it is also in danger of turning into one of those rogue hands that people complain about, where if he draws a preparation for a turn or two, it just turns into a whole bunch of mush.
Fountain of Knives is a good way of dealing with the board as well as drawing cards.
I think we'll see him drop the Thalnos now, because he is urgently looking for a card that does something.
Auctioneer, of course, would be absolutely huge.
Now, Pyman here is able to keep stuff coming onto the board for a while, but the problem is his Jades are really tiny, so even drawing into Jade Lightning, those cards at the moment aren't going to help him develop a huge board. And this is actually not an easy decision, because rogues with spell damage are scary, scary things, but it would be really nice to just drop your Tunnel Trog as well.
He's seen one backstab already. Seen one Viscerate as well. He's hovering over... Is he considering...
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. I'm not at all disappointed by this play. This means he defends his 4-4 from the likes of a backstab plus hero power, for instance.
That's one of the hands you were just talking about, Lorinda. Prep came out, Conceal as well. You have got absolutely nothing. You just hero power and you pass.
You can coin Eviscerate.
You could maybe Eviscerate and get rid of this 4-4. And this is the thing, Leroy was kind of throwing his hands up in the air saying, what, did you really just lightning bolt a 1-1 Thalnos? But I'm with you, I can understand the thought process behind it.
I mean, Pyman has identified that Leroy's hand is full of things that aren't doing anything, and one of the cards, even though he's used one already, that doesn't do anything is backstab. That Leroy would not have used yet, I think. Unless he could have buffed his... I don't think he could have done it unless he'd backstabbed with Wrath of Air Totem, which would have been kind of messy. So, Leroy's got to seriously consider coin Eviscerate on this Drake. It doesn't totally ruin his hand if he does draw into an Auctioneer or an Edwin, I don't think. So I think we'll see him do it.
Other cards, like Cold Blood as well, could have come back to punish Pyman if he had left that 1-1 on the board. The Cold Blood could have been used just to trade. I really like the play, and now Leroy is forced to use some of his removal just to get rid of that as a Drake, but of course can't put any threats on the board, and now Pyman will be looking for something significant drawn here to try and get a board presence of his own.
That's significant.
That's pretty significant as well. It's not turn 2 play, the turn 3 play, sorry, that we so much see.
But it sort of feels like it, right? Because they've both got turn 3 kind of hand, where neither have actually got anything to do. Normally you can't do anything because your mana's not there, but these guys can't do anything because they haven't got anything to do. That's a godsend for Leroy. He's going to be able to put something on the board at least. And hopefully for him, draw into something, and that is a fantastic draw. going to help him to clear stuff out. Actually using the coin, not the prep for this fan. Saving the prep in case he does get the auctioneer.
Was a quick decision from him again, though.
Yeah, he started talking to the camera again a little bit, and like you say, he's sped up his play a little.
Hammer Toilet off the top. Another one of those cards that has recently come into play, of course.
Hitting a
Dealing
4
that
health
full damage.
minion.
Yeah, as you
it's
said.
just the right size. It's one of those cards that could, in another meta, and was in another meta, just completely unplayed. And it just finds its spot. Some of these cards, stats aren't always everything. I mean, it's quite a lot. It's 8 damage and a 4/2 for 5 mana. But sometimes they just find their niche in exactly the right position.
Yeah, and of course, Azure so popular in so many decks. Won't be next week, though.
No.
Goodbye.
Unless you're playing Wild.
Off to Wild it goes. It'll be sad to see it go, but there's so much that's going to be included.
I think it's the only card I'm sad to see go, but I also don't disagree with it. I think it has to go. It's just in every single deck. And any of the nerfs you could propose to it are kind of just make it garbage.
Yeah.
So it's best just to preserve the card and shoo it off to Wild with all the other dragons.
Definitely. Meanwhile, that adventurer does get concealed up, and there's no way for Pyman to deal with it. And Leroy's back to drawing on his speech bubble. Perhaps thinking that this game is looking closer to being won.
By whom, though?
Well, this is the thing. He doesn't particularly look comfortable, judging from his body language. Pyman is just going to build as much of a board as possible.
Yeah, that Fan of Knives was the go button for him. Plus this concealer, he's got to actually race anyway. He's seen the Fan of Knives go as well. And yeah, he's just going to start pushing that damage to the face.
And there's nothing really sappable either for Leroy here. I remember a significant moment in last season in the Premiership. Leroy sapped a Flame Tongue Totem, and he regretted it so much, and he said, I will never do that ever again.
Right.
I guess the best thing to sap here would be the 4/2.
This Barnes Confession, a wide range of things, including Auctioneer. And there is the Auctioneer, and suddenly this hand of not particularly exciting cards turned into an incredibly exciting hand, and Leroy's going to do a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, baby. Nothing picked up just yet to work with. It does have the Cold Blood to try and enhance more.
Yeah, he needs to spend a moment. Normally I'm all in favour of just going straight away here, but you've got to decide, what am I taking down here?
Yep. What am I trading? How am I going to win this game? What do I need to get rid of? What's left in my opponent's hand? How are they going to win? How much damage can they push through? Because realistically, he has to get rid of these Flame Tongue Totems.
Yeah.
But even then, you're looking at some burst damage coming from Pyman. Of course, not enough just yet.
Oh, this sap is gigantic. He can now sap one of the Flame Tongues or the 4/2, which will save a whole bunch of damage. If he wants to clear up the whole board, he can. Or he can just force a whole bunch of face. But he'll have worked this out in that pause he made. I think we'll see the 3/2 just trade in here. And everything else take care of the board. And now Leroy's in a position where he has 1 or 2 turn lethal, depending exactly how this Auctioneer plays out.
Faceless for Pyman to put a little bit of board pressure. No way of dealing with that Auctioneer except for lava bursting it. Now, we saw him lightning bolt a 1/1 earlier.
But
not sure you can use that
the lava
burst
for 6 to face, well, 5 to face plus. Expect you to get spell damage if your opponent starts going face as well.
I think you totem up, play your 7/7, play the Twilight Elemental as well as the totem that's been sat back into your hand.
Sure.
He's got another Taunt Totem as well. That's actually a really huge role there.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay. Interesting that he's thinking about lava bursting the barns. He's clearly got a game plan. He's saying, you've got to get through both of these taunts. I've got a 7/7 on board. I know I have a lava burst, another lava burst in my deck to work with, and he's playing to his outs.
Yeah. And he's thinking his 7 can possibly deliver twice. If he had lava bursted face, though, the 13/8 would have traded into the 7/7. It's interesting.
I like Leroy playing Leroy right now. Running
Leroy
it into
playing Leroy.
Running it into one of the 0/2 totems. Oh no, you're still leaving
He knows
yourself.
the hand. Remember, he does know the hand. He sapped that card, so he's not playing with. The only incomplete information he's playing with is the same information Pyman has, which is the top card of Pyman's deck.
Yep.
It's the only card that Leroy doesn't know is going to happen next turn.
I was thinking he'd be able to get rid of everything and leave his questing on 1 health and clear the board, but actually there would still be a whelp left from Leroy, so that line of play was...
The awkward thing here, yeah, it would have been to use the dagger, and he's going to go with your line.
But it will leave 1 whelp left, I believe. But
Did
it
he
will
get
get
everything
rid
off?
of, it will get rid of the 7/7. We'll get rid of the faceless, which is the important factor. But yes, he was able to get everything off.
That's nicely worked. I mean, he knows that Pyman shouldn't have any outs here unless there's a Bloodlust or something. Bloodlust wouldn't actually be enough, right? It would be 1 short. And nicely worked out there from Leroy. He's doing 18, 19 next turn, 20 if you count the Auctioneer play. It's not actually lethal yet. Pyman needs runner here.
Yeah, was 2 whelps left over, so that will be enough to deal with the Leroy, but he really wants to be dealing with the adventurer, and no way of doing that. So Taunt again is pretty big for Pyman. Will keep him alive. Any sort of spell would be absolutely massive for Leroy, but I'm really struggling to see how Pyman is going to get back into this one now.
Ouch. Is that lethal? It's not lethal, but it's very close. Auctioneer, Cold Blood up something. Yeah, he's going to see what he gets off this first.
It's even more spells.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 23. So he needs backstab or preparation. That'll probably be doing it.
I think you just Auctioneer and then you Cold Blood here, right? And
You Auctioneer Cold Blood and you write a silly sign.
Yeah, and that's what he's doing. He well and truly knows that he's won, and he will be taking this series 3-1, because we know full well that Pyman doesn't, or at least we're fairly certain he doesn't run any Lightning Storms, but even then, it's not going to happen. I'm not even going to read what that says. I'm done with reading Helloleeroy's signs. You can read it if you want, though.
I've read it.
Alright, great. He's finished off the song. At least he had the opportunity to finish off the song, because at one point it was looking like the song was not going to be finished. Counterfeit coin comes out as well.
It was a very sad song for a moment.
It was a sad song. I think the counterfeit coin actually makes this possible lethal. Well, Conceal definitely does. And the concede will just come through, not allow it to happen. Helloleeroy will go 2-0 in the Swiss. Commiserations to Pyman, who will fall, and he will be at 1-1, but he definitely made a game of it.
Yeah, he brought Reno Lock, which I think is an important thing for him to do. He can't just sit there and bring aggro every single week in an environment where he can be researched. He's got to mix it up a bit. He didn't seem at all comfortable with the deck, but again, I think it will stand him in good stead if his opponents don't know what he's going to do each week. So the weeks he does choose to bring the aggro, he's got every chance of going through, and he will get better with those other decks as well. Leroy learned a lesson.
He did learn a lesson.
Which was nice.
Do you think Pyman is one of these players that could make finals, do you think? Because he's shown, I mean, he took down Jambro, who was the reigning champ.
So he can make finals.
So